Iron Breed Podcast. My name is Austin, and here again with me today is Gerard.
What's going on, everyone? Hope y'all doing good this Friday. We're bringing you an interesting topic. Both me and Austin have lived in a lot of different areas. What we've come to find out is it's not so much the place, it's the people, man. It's the
Oh,
people you got around you.
truly, it's interesting, and I think one of the coolest things that we'll be able to. This is going to be a large opinion piece on our part, but I think one of the coolest things that we're going to be able to offer you is all the different insights here of what we've learned in living in these different places and kind of like why it's important to go live in different places. And we're not saying you need to pick up and move your life right now, and but at some point I feel that it's really important to just kind of get out of your hometown and go experience life somewhere else. So I don't know about you, uh, wherever you may be listening to this right now, you probably grew up in a slightly different place than I did. But I grew up in central Pennsylvania, and like it's a good and fine place. It's there's nothing wrong with it. But this world is massive. You know, Central Pennsylvania is a small blip in the radar of this planet, and there's so many things that go on and happen outside of our neighborhoods, outside of our hometowns, that we almost like never know about. There's so many things that we never get exposed to, we never see. Our hometowns only have so much. And maybe if you're one of those people that grew up in a massive city, you'll have a completely different experience than Gerard and I will, because we both grew up in small town Pennsylvania. So for us, being able to go out and live in these massive cities has been a complete, absolute game changer and an eye opener. It truly, I know for me, it's been like, whoa, what is this? But it's been really cool, and it's really changed my life a lot. So we're gonna take some time to go over. Gerard and I have lived in some similar places. And I have visited a lot of cities as well, so I have some insights on what cities I do like and don't like from that I've visited. But Gerard, why don't you go first? Let's run through some of the cities that you lived in, and what did you like about them, and what did you not like about them?
So it's funny. Like we talk about, yeah, growing up in central Pennsylvania, I grew up in a state college, which is where Penn State University is located. And don't get me wrong, it's a nice area, but it's still like I would say rural Pennsylvania. The one thing that I was fortunate with is the opportunity to travel at a very young age. So at a very young age, I got to experience what life was like overseas. I've lived in Germany, I've traveled around, I've been to all over Europe, even a couple countries in Asia. And what thankfully that gave me a perspective on is how we are all so similar and not that different in the ways we live our lives. And that, you may be discontent where you're at, or you may be content. You may think like, oh, if I go someplace, it'll be better. But I've been in a lot of nice places, and what I can always tell you is it's not always going to be the place. It's going to be the people that you're around, because when you don't have that group, that connection of people around you, it oftentimes can, take away from the spot. But to run through the list real quick of the major areas in the United States I've been at, it would go more of central Pennsylvania, Buffalo, Seattle, Portland, Phoenix, Arizona. And a lot of traveling and stops along the way. I've driven across the country twice and down it once on the West Coast, and so you see a lot of it. And you know, I loved where I was at Buffalo. I, loved where I was at in Seattle. I was somewhat content with where I was at in Portland. And I love where I'm at in Phoenix right now. But there were all parts of those places that I really disliked. And what I've been able to do and look back on a lot of the times, it was due to the lack of the people, the lack of the group, the lack of the interactions. And then you add on top, okay, now you look at the actual place and the cost of living and what's available and the weather. Weather was always a huge factor. I mean, growing up in PA, everyone who lives on the East Coast knows that half your year is terrible weather. We're talking just winter and slush and ice and more of that. And so it really does play a huge part on your mental health. And people don't realize that.
However,
And
lit though, as I drink a pumpkin beer. Oh shit, I'm drinking a beer on the podcast. I know. But fall is pretty lit. So out of all the things that I do appreciate on the East Coast, fall is number one. And the list is pretty short after that, but fall is number one. Anyway, continue.
you're fine. Fall is pretty spectacular. So that's another thing is like every area brings its own benefits, whether it be the actual city, the culture, the food, the environment, or like we kind of mentioned, the weather. So it's been interesting to experience all of those. Phoenix has arguably been the hottest place I've ever experienced. I never thought I would live in a desert. It really is different. I just drove through a sandstorm for the first time. It's crazy. They call it a haboob out here. It's got a really goofy name, but it was terrifying. It was interesting. But again, just going back to our topic, what I found with every single one of these places, like where I worked at in Buffalo was hard. It was challenging at times. But what made that so great was the team. It was the football players. It was the people I was around daily. Even when I was going through a really hard time there, that's what made it. That's what made me love that place. When I got to Seattle, I didn't know anyone, and that was really hard for a big part of the time until I started making connections and meeting some people. And I call my Seattle family because they were so kind and they took me in. One of the places I had a really hard time was Portland. Frankly, I don't think I was there long enough to really give, you know, it as much of an effort as I could. And that was also, if you listen to some of our previous podcasts, a really challenging time for me, a really tough place to live and go through what I was. Um,
The whole
and
vibe
so that's funny.
is weird.
Yeah,
Weird.
Austin came and
I
visited me
visited.
in Portland.
Yeah, I visited Gerard up in Portland, and we hit up Strength Union Gym, and we did a lot of random stuff up in Portland. Portland is a straight like you hop off the plane, right, and you feel that vibe. It's weird, but I love it. I don't know what it is. It is so weird. You get out of the airport and you're like, yeah, you're driving. Gerard was driving me into the city, and I'm just like looking around, and I'm like, man, this is a weird place. I love it. I don't know what it is about Portland. It's weird, but I like that. So anyway, I didn't live there though, so I don't have the same experience, but it's weird. I like
And
it.
what I found too is was nice is some of the people I did meet. I keep in touch with them, and I'm thankful for that. And I'm like, wow, okay, I really did. I maybe I jumped ship sooner than I could have. I needed to give that place more of a chance, and it's somewhere I'll always want to go back and revisit. Um, but once again, the only reason I'm in Phoenix is because of someone I know, a close friend of mine. And it's again what's become the people that are making this area. Now, it's been pretty hard to meet people with COVID-19. That's been a challenge. But and so I've been feeling that a little bit with this area. But again, what I've found is it's the social group, it's the connections you make. It's not so much like, oh, I live right next to the Hollywood sign. That's cool. I know some people who do that, and they you can live in some of the nicest areas. And I think Austin, you should tell them about your how you almost lived in Manhattan story.
Wow.
But
Yeah.
first, tell them about all the spots you've been at,
Oh
Austin.
man. If I had So I spent most of my life growing up in Pennsylvania, central Pennsylvania, all over the place. Um, and then fortunately, I had the ability to go up to Buffalo. It's really funny. Buffalo was never actually supposed to happen. I was supposed to go to Ohio, and there was some sort of issue, so I needed to find a replacement internship that year, and um, so in my scramble, I almost ended up in Tennessee. I almost ended up in Boston. I almost ended up. Uh, there was another school that I almost ended up. It was a weird. Oh, it was like in Illinois. Yeah, that was weird. But Buffalo was the first one to call me back and offer me an internship. So I said, "All right, we're shipping up to Buffalo for a summer." And yeah, I mean, I don't know if Buffalo's ever somewhere I would like live again. Um, the people are super proud of that area, though. The people that live there are proud of that area for sure, and I respect them that because not many people are super proud of where they live. So Buffalo, and I mean, we were there. Gerard and I were both in Buffalo for a summer, so we can't comment on how horrible the winters can be. I mean, it was humid. It was humid as hell when I was there, though, and I'm sure it was for you. But it was the people, though. You know what I mean? Most of the people were pretty cool. I mean, honestly, what made it for me was the group of people that I interned with, the coaches I interacted with. I still communicate with some of those on a pretty regular basis now. And a lot of the times it does have to do with the people, even the athletes, Gerard and I, we both know some similar athletes, but I know some athletes that were there before his time, and he knows some athletes that were there after my time. And we all communicate with them to some varying degree. So, but that was kind of like my first time living in a different place, like really far from home on my own. I ran into some issues, like my debit card got hacked, and I had no money in my bank account for like 2 weeks, and like people were paying for me to have gas to come to my internship, and they were giving me protein bars and trail mix so I could eat food. Yeah, I mean, it was a trying time, but we made it work. And then from there, I was fortunate enough to get the opportunity to go to Vegas for another internship, and that sparked a drive across the country. And I took the scenic route for sure. And Vegas for me has a very special place in my heart. Everybody, when they think of Vegas, they think of the strip and all the nightlife and stuff. But Vegas outside of the strip is like that's not Vegas. Vegas is I mean, it is an oasis in the middle of nowhere. Anything you could ever want or imagine is in that city. But for me, that was the furthest I've ever been away from home, and I had to like really figure it out, like how to live on my own. And I had a huge mental breakdown when I was out there. I actually one day almost packed up my shit and started driving back to Pennsylvania because I was dealing with so much anxiety, like trying to cope with being out that far for the first time. It was unreal. Like you could ask a few select people, and like I would be like FaceTiming them on like a daily basis, like freaking out because I don't know what like how I'm gonna do it and whatever. And that's where I really like decided to make a change in my life and started doing like a lot of different things and implementing a lot of different changes in my life. And my life has forever been changed by that trip. Vegas is hot as hell. I mean, it's hot. There's no way around it. And my car's AC at the time did not work. Bless the Merc, may it rest in peace forever. But we went across the country and back, but it was not equipped for Vegas summer, and so that was pretty brutal. But I'm super forever thankful. But I didn't know anybody, but I made some friends, and like I still keep in touch with some people from out there. I was fortunate that my boss was, super nice and included me to all of his and his family's cheat meals, so it was like, I mean, it was great for me to be able to have that experience to just have somebody that I could even hang out with. But I had to make friends, and I was in a lot different place mentally than I am now. So if I were to go there again now and live there, it would be a completely different ballgame than the first time. But I loved it there. 12 out of 10 would live again. Um, from there, back to Pennsylvania, finished my master's degree, and then I got the opportunity to move down to Dallas. However, before that, I actually had a job opportunity in Manhattan, and I turned it down before I even knew that I was going to have a job offer in Dallas. Mainly because I spent a day walking around Manhattan. One, I didn't really want to give up my car to live in New York City and have to take public transport every day. I wasn't super thrilled about that concept, if we're being completely honest. And I wasn't also really thrilled about how the cost of living in New York. But I spent a day, I had a job interview and I hung out with a friend in Manhattan that day. I spent a day walking around Manhattan all day long. I mean, it's pretty Long Island, right? It's not Long Island, but it's a relatively long place. So, so anyway, I was walking up and down, and not a single person said hi to me. Nobody looked at me. People wouldn't make eye contact with you. And I was just like, man, people here are dicks. Like, I don't know if I really want to live here. And I'm a Mets fan. I'm a Mets fan. I'm like, if I live in New York, I'm going to be a season ticket holder and I'm going to go to Mets games all the time. And I was even like, nah, I can't live here. Like, no way. This is not the place for me. So as the story would unfold, I ended up moving to Dallas. And it's actually really funny. From my previous experience of driving around the country and stuff, I hated Dallas. Dallas was one of my least favorite places outside of Houston. Houston was even worse, but Dallas was one of my least favorite places of the entire trip. And I'm like, ugh, I'm gonna go live in Dallas now. Ugh, Texas. Ugh, I don't know about that. Well, guess what? I fucking love Texas. Texas is one of my favorite states in this country. I am a lifelong Stars fan now. I mean, my life forever has been changed by living in Dallas. And like my life was even in a super rough place. Like mentally, I went through a lot there, and it still doesn't shape the fact that I still love that place. And I mean, if you can see my wall behind me, it is completely dedicated to the Stars, who are also on the TV right now. Like, not that that's relevant, but it's just one of those things where it's like, you know, some of the closest friends that I've met, and I still talk to. I haven't lived there for like almost a year now, and I still talk to on like a daily basis. Are all in Dallas, and it's hot. It's hot. It gets a little humid. The cost of living is ideal, though. I mean, that you can't beat the cost of living. Um, there's so much to do, and there's so many different opportunities. There's I mean, now granted, Texas is a big state, so it is pretty flat, and there's no like mountains or hiking, and then seasons don't really happen as much there. So if you like seasons, then maybe you're more of an East Coast person, or a California person or something. Well, California doesn't really have seasons, but it's so beautiful that I guess it doesn't really matter. Um, yeah, I don't know. I just really, really, really liked it, and I 12 out of 10 would live in Dallas again, and I hope that I get the opportunity to do so again. From there, I moved to Baltimore. I can honestly say Baltimore was not super high on my list of places, but for some reason, I said to myself, if I'm going to move back to the East Coast, Baltimore is one of the only cities that I'm going to go because it's at least close to my family. Hindsight 2020, Baltimore is hit or miss. There's nice areas and there's not so nice areas. I did not live in a very nice area. It was a more so not so nice area. And you know what, though? Everybody that I met in that area, for the most part, was pretty damn cool. It was pretty damn cool. And even though it wasn't a super nice area, a lot of the people that I met in Maryland have been really, really cool. And I have actually really enjoyed that part of it. And I'm sure if I lived in a slightly nicer area of Maryland or Baltimore or what have you, that I'd probably have a slightly different opinion of it. But I do like it, and I don't have any issues with Maryland now. I've been living in Alexandria for the last 2 months, and this is actually where I live now is probably the nicest place I've ever lived. And I like it, but there's something about this East Coast major city being close to DC area that, as far as interacting with people, has made it a little bit less than ideal or less favorable. I'm still trying to figure that out. Maybe, and I haven't been here very long, so it's been a process trying to figure all of that out, honestly. But it's been interesting, man. It's been really, really interesting. Um, there's something in the air, or maybe it's something in the water that these people are drinking. But you know, in Dallas, I could go into a grocery store. Same deal as Vegas. I could go in a grocery store and have a conversation with a random ass person. They come up and be like, "Damn, what do you eat? I need to eat like you." I mean, and I'm like, "Okay, cool. Like, let's talk about it. Like, let's talk about your diet. Like, what's your diet look like? Like, what are you doing? Like, let me give you some tips real quick here." That shit doesn't happen up here. You know what I mean? Like, I try to make small talk with somebody. Like, the cash register and like the cashier, and they're like, "Oh, somebody's actually asking me like how my day's going." Like crazy. And I'm like, "Yeah, like how you doing?" Like I don't know, maybe I just wasn't meant to be an East Coaster, but there's something about the East Coast where it's just so I don't know, you have to go out west to experience what a different style of living and life it is out there to truly appreciate it and understand the difference between the East and the West Coast. Um, but most people on the East Coast take offense to that. They really do because they hate the West Coast. They think the West Coast is a bunch of hippies that just get high all day and want free shit, which is partly true, but not completely true. It's just a completely different vibe. I mean, you step off the airport, off the plane in California, and it's just a completely different feeling. I would totally live in that state if it wasn't so damn expensive, but it is what it is.
Yeah, and I think that it's just, and that comes with the area. It's funny, like yeah, you see a lot of times East Coasters will take offense to that, and it's funny being two East Coasters. It's like we know it. We grew up in that like every every day, every day, and even in like a rural area like central Pennsylvania, you still get a bit of that. Maybe you're more likely to talk to someone because it's so, much smaller that you know people or see people or know people through other people. But overall, it is pretty much that's the tone, the vibe. I can't believe I was born in Georgia. I was born in the South. I really didn't live there long enough to know or remember much. People always tell me like, "Oh, where'd you get your accent?" Couldn't tell you, but I got a chance to go to New Orleans,
Oh,
and if we're
New
gonna talk about one area
it
that
is.
has my heart, New Orleans is crazy. I absolutely love it. I've never been to an area where people have just the kindness of their heart been so nice. I'll never forget. I was on a sidewalk, just people watching, just enjoying the day. This woman comes up and she says, "What? Is the ice cream not good enough for you?" I was like, "Me? Yeah, the ice cream not good enough for you." I was like, "What ice cream?" It's like that shop right behind you. Come on. And she just walked in the door. And I was kind of like, no, I'm good. She said, no, no, you got to try. If you're from out of town, you got to try. And she walked in, she bought me this huge sundae. She said, all right, enjoy. And just walked away. I never got her name. I could barely even say thank you as she was running down the street. But I was like, dang, where does that happen? That you can live somewhere or visit somewhere and someone just buys you some ice cream off the street. My experience. Go ahead.
My favorite New Orleans story. Devin and I were in New Orleans as we were coming back from Vegas, and I go in this one gas station, and the gas station attendant says to me, "You're not from here, are you?" I'm like, "Nah," and she's like, "Well, you're in the wrong gas station, sweetie." I was like, "Oh." So I was like, "Oh, okay, which one should I go to?" She's like, "Go 2 miles down the road and make a left." I was like, "Okay, I will." So nice. He was such
That is nice. We
uh,
had that happen in Jersey when we went on it was funny. It was like an all school field trip in high school, and I forget the bus driver got lost. He dropped us off somewhere in Jersey. We are actually going to a Devils game, and same thing. We like went to McDonald's real quick, get some food. So the lady said the same thing. She said, "Y'all really shouldn't be in this area." And I'll never forget the instructor was like, what?" Like, okay, how far are we from the stadium? So we quick walked out, went around, but I don't know. I've been in a lot. I have a saying: whenever you go to a city, you gotta go to the worst place and the best place, and you'll really get an idea of the city. So I truthfully do try to do that. Every city I've gone to, I've been in the some of the crappiest places in Seattle and some of the nicest places. I've seen Portland Heights, and then driven over to the part of town where you don't want to be over there at that time of night. I did the same thing when I went to Phoenix, Buffalo. Whew, you want to talk about like there's some really nice parts of Buffalo. then you can go over to South Side Buffalo, and it looks like you're in a completely different area. But that's how you really get a good perspective of where you're at. I think we should really get into real quick the importance of moving, experiencing. We've talked about it a lot,
Oh yeah.
and here's the thing: like your people might be where you're at right now. You might live around your family, all your friends, like you're in your area, you're good, but how will you ever branch out? How will you ever grow? How will you ever know if you don't go out and experience that? It is a skill. It's something that you can learn and acquire because it's tough. It's hard. Like the first 6 months being in someplace completely brand new. Oh my God, there are some days where you're just by yourself where you're living, but it forces you to adapt. It forces you to get out to meet people, to maybe go out of your comfort zone. And it also shows you that you can live in somewhere that we weren't comfortable with for the first time and actually have an amazing experience.
There's nothing like the personal growth that comes from picking up your life, moving thousands of miles away from anybody you know, and saying, "Good luck, time to start over." I don't know, I've done it 3 times now, and each time it gets a little bit easier. I mean, it does still kind of suck though, because it literally seems every time I finally start to make some friends and finally start to like get, my bearings on where I'm at and what I'm doing and my routine in my city, I pick up and move again. I wouldn't trade it. And honestly, I'm probably going to pick up and move again too. So it is what, I'm being real. I mean, I'd said when I moved here, I was like, oh, I'm not moving for a while. And I'm like, yeah, that's bullshit. I know I'm going to be moving at some point. So, but that, it is what it is. So, uh, I, I've gained, I could not, let me put it this way. I could not imagine who I would be or where I would be and what I'd be doing if I didn't make those moves. And even the moves that I didn't want to make, like leaving Dallas was so hard. So hard. I did not want to leave Dallas at all. But you know what? I left and life has unfolded in such a way that like with who I am right now, I could not be any happier or prouder because I have had to adapt and overcome so much since that move. And so I really encourage you to go out of your comfort zone and do the same. Don't be afraid to pick up and move to an area that you've never been. Well, maybe go check it out first. That'd probably be a good idea. I never checked outside of like, me having been in Dallas, I never checked out the area that I moved to. Twice I have moved into places moved into apartments without ever seeing them in person. Kind of hard to do that when you're not there and you don't want to fly down to do that. So just take it.
3 times.
Yeah.
I've said I flew to Seattle once and was like, all right, let's do it. Didn't see where I was at in Portland. Was like, all right, let's do it. And then same thing with Phoenix. I didn't even know anything about Phoenix, and I was like, all right, well, let's do it. So I recommend you put a little more forethought and effort
Oh, for
into
sure, definitely.
researching your areas.
Yeah.
But if anything we can say is the boots on the ground, almost kind of winging method, it forces you to grow. It forces you to adapt to your new area. And as we are living proof, it works out.
And
It will.
this one last thing. If you're scared to do it because you don't know what's going to happen or because you might fail, what's the worst thing that happens? You go back home and you start off again. Well, I felt the same way. Guess what? I have yet to move back home, and honestly, I've been doing way better ever since. So bet on yourself, bet on the opportunities. If the opportunity's there, don't squander that shit because one day you're gonna die and think, damn, I really wish I would have went out and I would have seen way more. Don't be like that.
It's true, people. It's a big world. It's a big world. Don't be afraid to get out and go see it.
I know we've got a
Oh,
ton of travel ideas that we want to do. I mean, I've done a lot of traveling in this country, but I'm like starting to look outwards. You know, and I know Gerard is too. So
My goal is always to get back out. Once you see it, once you realize that this, bubble we live in the United States, it's great, it's amazing, but there are so many wonderful places in the world and so many people that you don't even know can't wait to meet you. So on that note, people, oh, we got some apparel dropping. We're gonna, keep you in touch with what we got going on with all of that.
it is
But
live now,
as
though.
always,
Very much. I mean, oh no, you're not wearing the Iron Breed tank, but you can very.
it's
Oh, Dubs, Dubs, Dallas with Dubs, Dallas with Dubs. Me, let's go. No, I'm just kidding. But we have apparel. Go check it out, please. We didn't do a Labor Day sale or anything. We just launched it. But feel free to check it out. Let us know what you want to see. Let us know what you think. Our apparel is very nice. It's crisp. It's clean, and it's meant for everybody. So check it out, please.
I give I give it a 10 out of 10. Full bias.
Only a little bit biased.
A
All
little
right.
bit.
All right, it's been real. I know this was really opinionated, but I hope that you learned a little bit from the opinions that we shared and maybe found a new city that you want to go check out. As always, hit us up with any questions, any ideas, any topics, any comments. We always love to hear from you. And thanks again for listening to the Iron Breed Podcast.